Hi, I'm Dr. Chad Larson. This is our fourth installment on our series on grit. And so just as a quick summary, the first episode was about the grit to persevere. And the way to build even mental perseverance is kind of practicing it with physical perseverance. And that's, taking a little bit longer walk than what you're used to. Or if you work out with weights, maybe make the weights a little heavier, do 1 or 2 extra repetitions. So you're kind of building the neurobiology, building the energy in your system that when you're asking your body to do whatever difficult task is at hand or whatever kind of new thing that you're trying to learn, that you're building up the energy and you're telling your brain that you're going to be able to have that extra energy when the time comes. Because like we talked about in that episode, your brain is a maniacal accountant of energy based on what you've been doing in the past and sort of the types of calories that you're consuming. It kind of is keeping track of every bit of energy, and it tries to create that kind of homeostatic set point. And if we're asking our brain to do something new, something difficult, we have to train the neurobiology to expect that this is going to happen. And that'll really help to ensure our success with whatever kind of new thing or hard task that we're trying to do. That's the perseverance, and then there's the grit to control our thoughts. And this is all about being able to pay attention to the things that we're trying to focus on and ignore the things that are kind of trying to pull our attention away. And so I talked about some specific skills that we can work on to build that grit skill. And the third one is the grit to master fear. And so you kind of want to do them in the right order. So fear would come next, and fear is a great tool for developing focus. As Stephen Kotler says, fear gives us focus for free. Because remember, the brain is this maniacal accountant of energy. And if we're, again, kind of asking it to do something new, we can use fear. We can put ourselves in certain situations where, if you're doing something that causes a little bit of fear in the system, it really allows you to focus in on that. And so you can use that as a skill, as a grit skill, to kind of develop that attribute. And a really great and efficient way to help us focus in and drive your attention to what you're trying to work on and prevent your attention from being distracted in another direction. So that takes us to today, which is the grit to be your best when you're at your worst. And what that means is there's going to be inevitable obstacles along the way to learning something new or to doing a hard task, because it's just going to happen. Whatever kind of thing that you're working on, maybe you have to have a difficult conversation with a family member or colleague, or maybe you're taking on a new diet or lifestyle, because burning fat when you're kind of have a standard American kind of diet lifestyle, that's kind of hard. Sticking to New Year's resolutions, that's kind of hard. There's going to be obstacles in the way, and so we could help to increase our chance of success by building on these grit skills now. You kind of prime your neurobiology to be able to deal with those inevitable and predictable obstacles, because they're for sure going to show up. And so there's ways that we could do our best, be our best when we're at our worst. And there's a way that we could train for these things. Like, for example, maybe you have to give a speech at work or a presentation. So how can you kind of support and kind of build your neurobiology to be able to do that difficult task? Is you kind of want to make yourself practice that task when you're taxed. So maybe you go for a walk and you're hiking up a steep hill. Work on your presentation as you're going up that hill. You're already in kind of a deficit, you're tired, you're out of breath, and now you're going to go do this presentation. You're building that skill, you're building the neurobiology to say, when I have to go do something difficult, I need this neurochemistry to show up to help me to do that task. Oftentimes I'll put people on, some challenging diets, and there's ways that we can take kind of baby steps into that, so we can prove to their brain and kind of prove to their physiology that they're able to, kind of take it to the next level. So like an example is I might put somebody on a diet. They've got metabolic syndrome, they're overweight, they might have even prediabetes, and I want to help them with their blood sugar metabolism. So what I might do is I might increase their overnight fasted period. So let's say normally they they have their last snack at 9:30 at night and they're eating their first thing at 6:30 in the morning. That's not really enough time for the body to kind of burn the proper amount of glucose in the system. So they already have an excess amount of glucose. I'm trying to increase that fasted period overnight. So I might have them, go 12 hours of an overnight fast, or 13 hours or 14 hours. And there's ways that we can start to work on that in little bite-sized chunks, because when I was going through reversing my metabolic syndrome, what happened to me at night, I don't know if this happens at your house, but there's a gravitational pull that kind of changes with the kitchen at night. And the pull for me was a lot stronger at night. And all of a sudden I'm like in the kitchen eating something and I don't even know how I got there. And so there's a little bit of a way that we could, in a bite-sized kind of chunk, we can go, okay, I'm getting that feeling. And maybe, one of the things that I did, I'd go make some hot tea and I would just sip on some tea. And as a way to avoid, eating something in the kitchen so that I could do that, 13 or 14 hour overnight fast. And there's ways that you can kind of build that skill. And I woke up the next day and went, I didn't have that snack at night. And then you string that together enough times, and this can be done in a whole bunch of different ways, but you show up in a way where you start to build that skill. Another one is sometimes you're unmotivated to go exercise, to go for a walk or to go to the gym. And what you do to help build this skill, this grit of being your best when you're kind of feeling your worst, is those days that you feel totally unmotivated, put on your shoes, put on your workout clothes, go for a walk, go for a jog, whatever your thing is. And what you're doing is you're building that grit skill so that whatever big life situation, maybe you have a New Year's resolution, guess what? Those are kind of hard to stick with. If you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to learn a new task, those obstacles are going to show up. There's days where you're going to feel not so good. You're going to be kind of unmotivated. You're going to be tired. Maybe you worked all day and you just don't feel like working on it. There's little ways that we could kind of take those into kind of bite-sized chunks and build up that grit skill over time, because the obstacles are inevitable and they show up for everybody. But there's a way that we could, instead of trying to have the willpower to overcome that, we can use this as a skill that we can develop over time so that when those things show up, our brain, our neurochemistry is ready to go overcome it. So this is kind of an uncomfortable one to train because you don't feel good. And, to build the skill, that's the only way to build it, is you have to go do something that, you kind of don't feel up to doing. But you do that enough times, you show up enough times, then you're ready for the bigger things that life might throw at you. So I will keep bringing you. We have 2 more installments in our series of grit after this one. And I will keep reading the studies and bring you the information. Until then, keep it real.